Hi, and welcome to another episode of Women Winning Their Way. I'm your host, Clara Capano, and this is the show where we talk about breaking free from the standards that are set from society, our cultures, our families, and we as women learn to forge forward on our own path to success. So today I'm bringing up a special friend of mine that I have known for many years, and she's going to talk to us about how she created her own path even at a very, very young age. So she's got a lot we can learn from. So I would get ready to take some notes, and let's go ahead and welcome Laura Mahoney to the stage. Laura, welcome. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. I love reconnecting with you. This has been such a pleasure.
I know, we are friends from, elementary school, junior high, and unbeknownst to us, we found ourselves both living in the Phoenix area. So we've been able to reconnect, and it's just been amazing. So tell our audience just a little bit about who you are.
Well, I am a floral designer, and I've lived here in Arizona for about 16 years. So time has just flown by. I moved here from California. I originally grew up with you, San Jose. And right now I have just found a wonderful place downtown. I'm doing freelance work and keeping busy. It's been a lot of fun living downtown here in Phoenix.
Good. Yes, you're going to take me around once it gets a little cooler out and show me.
Yeah, we're almost there. It's October and we think it's fall, but it's not.
Not quite there, but we'll get there. So, this whole show is about defining success and being able to define it on our terms. But let's rewind time a little bit. When you were young, when you were a young girl, what did you picture success to look like for you? What did you think about success when you were young?
That's a tough question because I think when you live in a traumatic household, you really only view how to survive the next day. You really don't have much of a thought of a future. It's really, you are in a bit of a survival mode. So I had some other siblings, 2 brothers and a sister, and it was we were a little bit on our own, trying to navigate because of our different ages. So success for me was really trying to survive the household, kind of gauging personalities, you kind of get attuned to, is this going to be a good day? Is this going to be a bad day? What's mom like? What's dad like?
Wow.
So success was just kind of making it as a kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty heavy again to, put on, a kid. So let's dive a little bit more into this because I will be completely honest, looking from the outside in,
right.
Your family looked like it was all together. You lived in a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood. It looked like everything was fine. And it was really, surprising when we connected a few weeks ago and I heard your story, the fact that you actually left your home as a junior in high school and forged out on your own. So tell me a little bit about, kind of what brought you to that point, because talk about something taking courage. That's really admirable.
Yeah, that the whole facade is a big part of it. It was a lot of my mom mostly wanting to protect an image or an idea that she really wanted neighbors and the outside world to feel who we were. And a lot of it was me not able to share this because not only was it embarrassing, it was just emotionally, when you're living it, there's so much kid energy spent on, like I said, just surviving inside the house that you kind of just want to keep that to yourself. The second you let it slip to friends or teachers or the outside world, it's embarrassing. You don't want any more attention brought to it. So running away was a big thing. I was like, where can I go today? Remember the Egyptian Museum?
I love the Egyptian Museum.
I know. I was like, I'm going to the Egyptian Museum all day long. And I'd go on tours. Like I'd constantly be there in the garden. So escaping was a big thing. And I did have to leave when I was in high school because I knew that it was too volatile. I just didn't feel like I was going to survive. And I didn't know what that meant though. Like, survive, what am I going to do? I just knew living in that chaos was just not working. And I really wanted to graduate from high school. And so I wound up living with a lady. She was in her 30s. She lived with her dad. I worked at a deli at the time, at a local grocery store. And she was probably one of the first people I opened up to about my situation. And she's like, come live with us. So I did. I left, of course, there was some resistance from my parents, but I just couldn't go back. And there was a time right before I graduated that I knew that if I didn't go back to the house, I wasn't going to be able to collect some things that I knew that I was going to need. And because a lot of it was, you had to leave in the middle of the night. My mom couldn't know that, what I was up to, or else she would either call the police or make things extremely difficult. So right before I graduated, I did go back and I collected some things. And again, it was like in the middle of the night. I don't think maybe they thought I was staying. I haven't thought about this in a long time, but I graduated that week. My parents didn't come, nobody came. I was on the stage. I remember, we're all in alphabetical order. And I just knew at that moment I was, sorry.
No, please.
That I was accomplishing something. My grades are shit. And my teachers kind of at that point, I think my parents had called the school and they knew my situation. So I think it was just like, let's get this girl out of here. Like, let's pass her. I knew my math teachers were definitely happy to get rid of me. But I felt like I really did accomplish something. I remember standing there, and even though I didn't have anybody in the audience, I just I did this. Like, people just didn't realize the pain and the trauma and just the chaos to even get to that stage and walk off with a diploma was, I was pretty psyched. So that led the way to me realizing I can do things on my own. I can set goals for myself. I don't have to rely on my parents for, the roof over my head, the clothes on my back, the food on my plate. And that was their whole jive to us was, that was their form of love. They thought that the shelter was enough. Yeah. And everything else is just, everybody else lives like this, Laura. You think everybody else's family is wonderful, but they were just always trying to justify the chaos.
Yeah.
And then that just set a pattern for me, looking for jobs, transportation. And it just really, I know this is corny, and I've kind of heard this term recently is, it doesn't happen for you. No, it doesn't happen at you. It happens for you. Am I close?
Yeah.
But yeah. And I've learned that, it really did happen for me. Yeah. And I am who I am because of those struggles. And you choose relationships, you choose girlfriends, you choose partners and jobs. And the second I smell any time of crazy, it's like I feel like I'm a bloodhound for crazy. I'm like, I don't know if I can
I don't know. But it reminds me, the story of the butterfly. If a butterfly is coming out of the cocoon, it needs that struggle to make its wings strong enough.
Yeah.
Like a beautiful butterfly. You had to go through all those struggles so that you could fly. But, we could say that kind of, in jest a little bit. But before we go on to what happened next for you, I just want to ask a couple questions, because I know that there's going to be some other women, maybe even some men out there that are listening to this, and they're feeling trapped in their situation. Again, maybe they're younger, maybe it's a marriage, maybe it's a job that they're feeling like they can't let go of.
Yeah.
Obviously, this wasn't that you woke up one night and just said, oh,
No.
I think I'm going to do this. Sort of, what advice could you give them as far as preparing and feeling strong enough? And again, you mentioned this one lady that you worked with. What was it about her that you felt comfortable sharing with? So I know that's kind of several questions, but I would love to just kind of, see if you can light.
Right. I think, well, I knew I really needed help, and I was going to have to find an adult. At the time I was underage, and I just got to know her at work, and she felt like somebody that was open-minded. Sure, it must have been terrifying for her to hear stories that I was telling her about my house, enough for her to feel like I need to take this girl in. So there's just a breaking point. I think everybody has a breaking point. And I had hit mine a few times, but this graduation was coming up and my grades were suffering, and I needed that diploma. And it was kind of a necessity of mine to have to do this. But I think if you're feeling like that now, like you said, in a family situation or a relationship, I think you just have to really dig down deep inside and realize you are your own individual. It's okay to be selfish. It's okay to make some hardcore decisions that other people are not going to be happy with. But when it comes down to it, it's you. All you have is yourself, and you can't let other people's, thoughts or their demands shape you. You have to have the strength enough to realize you're most important.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that came from. I think I've always kind of battled my parents. I can remember being in first grade questioning some of their decisions. And I was just always bucking the system with them. And, I am thankful for that, because then that helped me realize that my first marriage wasn't right for me. And I realized, no, I have to leave this. And so that was an extremely healthy decision that I made. And I wound up finding somebody that, doesn't trigger me, doesn't, and that's a tough thing too, is when you live in a certain amount of chaos and trauma, finding relationships and, even with girlfriends and dating, because it's just, you don't realize what's going to set you off. You don't even know what you need, really.
Yeah.
And so finding another human out there that gets you, that is like, okay, Laura, of course you're behaving this way.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I think also someone that makes you feel safe, because
100%.
you were not in an environment that you felt safe in growing up. So questioning that and being like, how vulnerable can I be? How real can I be?
Correct.
And I think that's, a big part that so many of us struggle with too. So you graduate and then you head south, you go towards Los Angeles. So you have your high school diploma, but you really don't have anything else. So how do you create from there? I mean, I would be terrified to just basically take my backpack and just show up someplace. But, so that again, what do you do?
Well, that whole episode, so that's when I decided, that's when I thought getting married was going to be a great idea. But I was working at Kaiser Permanente. I had worked at Nordstrom for years. And then I decided, I needed healthcare. I started thinking about my future, and I wound up being a page operator for Kaiser. So I would do the midnight shifts, and in charge of the residence rotations and code blues and all this stuff. And so I was kind of getting my toes dipped into this kind of medical world. And I was slowly climbing my way up through Kaiser, and then wound up meeting somebody and going to Southern California. And then that's when I kind of started to slowly get into floral design. But yes, my first marriage wound up getting me to Southern California. And then that's when I realized this wasn't the life for me. This relationship is just not going to be my forever. But I had then had a baby. So that was another, heart-wrenching situation where I'm like, what's the best for everybody here? And so I just really wanted him to grow up in a loving environment. And this wasn't going to be it for my kids. So, that was really, really, really tough. But if I didn't have that, I can do this on my own. I don't need this person to still become who I want to be. I don't know if I would have left that marriage.
Right. Yeah.
Everything was very easy. Everything was very, very easy. And I decided to make things really, really hard again.
But it was the healthy thing to do, because again, it was the healthy thing to do.
It was really, really healthy, so healthy. And because of that, now, I've been able to experience what I never thought that I was going to experience again and forever.
Yeah. So I want to ask, because, we talk a lot about, making change. And one of the things that so many of my other guests have talked about is having a strong support system. What did you have for support? I mean, you had that wonderful lady, that you worked with. But when you left your marriage, you're now a single mom in an area that is still relatively new. How did you find support?
Oh, boy. Not a lot of support. It was very difficult because since I didn't have family, I was on my own to kind of emotionally figure out how to do this with a baby. And, it was tricky. I hurt somebody. I left somebody. I left a family. So I was, battling, feeling extremely sad about what I had caused, but knowing this was going to be a wonderful thing in the end. He might find somebody that's supposed to love him the right way. And, but no, I have to say it was really hard. And mental health, I don't even know if it was like a thing at that point. We were just kind of on the cusp of that. You couldn't really find somebody to talk to. I think it was mostly just girlfriends. I think it was having a few key players in my life that knew what I was going through. And, we were all, therapists for one another, but not a ton of support. But again, I never really had support. I didn't grow up with support. I was always feeling like I was in a war zone. So almost in a way, I threw myself back in another war zone, but I was familiar with this feeling.
Yeah.
I knew I was in the trenches again. I knew I was going to have a lot of rough nights, but because I didn't know support, I never really felt that. I didn't miss it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what it was like.
You just did what you did. And so, I mean, in a way, I guess that lack of support ended up being kind of a benefit because it allowed you to, again, forge forward on your own. Now, as you're doing all of these things, again, I know you didn't share it with a lot of people, and I completely understand that, especially as a teenager. But as you started, sharing your story, were you met with, shame, or why did you do that? Especially, leaving, a family that was, secure for you. When I got ready to leave my divorce, a lot of people were like, why? It's, it's put together. And, how did that impact you?
Well, I think it was difficult. I didn't really let too many people in my circle at that time because I really didn't want to have to explain. And a lot of people from the outside, probably they were going to come up with their own conclusions anyway. You can't really change people's minds. When you just walk out on a marriage like that, it's sort of, it's a lot of gossip. It's a lot of hearsay. It's a lot of, oh my God, what happened to these guys? So I really just felt like keeping my mouth shut about it because it just really wasn't anybody else's business. And I just needed time to figure out what the hell I was doing, you know? So just a couple girlfriends knew, but, you know, I like that. And I think that that's just my personality. When I feel like troubles are brewing, you just kind of hunker down, and I need to like ruminate with it. I need to like plan. I need to emotionally be ready. And so I just become a little bit more quiet and plan my strategy.
I like that. Again, yeah, being very thoughtful. So now let's talk about getting into floral design, because again, you were working for Kaiser, you had the insurance, all of these
Yeah.
things, and you moved over. And I know that you've worked for other companies, you're doing
Yeah.
freelance work on your own. And this is something that you found a big joy in, and you've
Love
created
it.
into
Yeah.
a career. So how did you find this and uncover this passion? Because it's not every day that you meet someone that's in floral
No.
design.
No, so I've always been a creative. I've always done stuff with my hands. Always making something, sketching, drawing, painting. And when I lived in Southern California, I had the wonderful opportunity to work for a floral shop called Jacob Mars. And I worked in the plant department. I would have loved to have been like one of their like amazing designers behind the counter, but they had a stable of wonderful people, and I was just getting into this. So I took whatever I learned from Jacob, and then I wound up being hired at a shop in Venice Beach called Sentiments. And that was phenomenal. It was like working in like a high-end kitchen. Everything was just precise. Tools had their places. I learned about, the proper cutting of stems and hydration, and just the owner, Barbara Myers, was wonderful. She just wound up becoming like a mother figure to me. And then Tom Simmons, who ran the joint, he was great. And I loved working under, I still to this day, I run my house the way he ran Sentiments. I know where everything is, everything has to be put away. I absolutely love it. And then from there, I just fell in love with designing and working on weddings and events. And I've just carried that over through to Arizona. So I've been able to like move kind of my modern, fun, quirky, whimsical floral design style, and I'm kind of doing that over here.
Yeah.
So it's been a real passion, and now we're getting back into it. It's floral season again here.
I know. So, when you're out there working, what kind of joy does that bring you? Like how is it helping you to really step into who you are as a person?
I think it's how I show people a bit of me. I think I love seeing the end product. I love seeing the look on people's faces. I love the enjoyment. You invite me to dinner, you're definitely getting flowers. I think I've always been a big, what's the word? Not like a gift giver, but I love presenting something that I've made to people. And I don't know if that stems from maybe not getting that in my childhood. I really didn't have, my parents weren't that interested in my art or that creative side that I had. I was always doing something around the house, and it was rare that it was being paid attention to. So now I'm probably just like a giant child, like, oh, look what I made. Here you go. And I love the feedback. I live off of that. So, right now my whole front yard is it looks like a crazy lady lives here for Halloween, but the children love it. And I love to see just the enjoyment that the neighborhood gets from it. So I think it's probably everything that I lacked growing up. I'm trying to make up for it now.
Yeah. I love that. And, talking about sort of, what you lacked growing up, what are some of the ways that I'll call them, I guess, life lessons? What are some of the things that you are doing differently, with your children and in your relationship with your husband, that I guess you learned not to do from your childhood that you've pulled over and you're really working to do a better job at it?
My kids aren't mine. They don't belong to me. I made them, they came out of me, I made some humans, but they don't belong to me. They're their own individuals. And I try to let them know that as much as possible. Sure, did you brush your teeth today? You got your homework done. I'm here for some guidance, but I really want them to feel 100% loved and that they are 100% themselves. And they're going to make mistakes. I know they're going to make mistakes. We weren't allowed in our house to make any mistakes. So if you don't make mistakes, you're not going to grow. You're not going to understand how to move forward. And I just really love spending the time with my kids. And I just didn't get that. Stories weren't read to us. Dinner time, oh God, forget it. Like that was just like, we're going to sit down and have dinner together. Oh, what a nightmare. Somebody was under the table crying. There was always it was just a disaster. So I like having a fun dinner time. I like to, holidays are a big deal for me. Enjoyment, just in trying to enjoy, just really trying to, we get this one chance. And I knew what it was like to not have a loving environment. So I just try to make that as much as possible for mine. And I think as far as my husband goes, he's pretty patient because I am a little bit out there and I'm the fun parent. And because that's all I really want to focus on. I've already had enough bullshit in my life. I'm unfortunately the fun one. And so he has to be, the heavy.
Yeah. Someone has to be. So yeah.
I don't want to be the heavy. I'm done with that. I'm too old for that.
Exactly. So, you mentioned the idea earlier of, with your husband that he doesn't trigger you. Talk a little bit more if you can about that, because people who have gone through trauma, these are things. So when you are in an environment where you're feeling yourself getting triggered, are there certain signs, and how do you combat that to come back?
Well, I have to be very aware of my triggers. And I think that's a big thing, is that people aren't aware of their own triggers. And then they get upset and they're crying and they don't realize that it's something that's been bottled up or it's been in their past. And so I am highly aware of what sets me off. So for Sean, I just have to be verbal about it. And he's like, oh, okay, no, I get it. I mean, I'm not going off like every single day, so it's not triggering me, but some things, are a little bit difficult. I think, there's sometimes sadness creeps up and you don't realize it. And I think that just goes into other aspects of your life. And then you have to pull back and go, why am I so upset about this? Why is this bothering me? And then I go, okay, wait a minute. That's because, all right, I don't have a mom. Which, it's just kind of like, oh, right, the obvious. Or, I don't have that person to call. Or I think a lot of it is feeling appreciated. And so what is it? The kids are talking about their love language right now. Like, what's your love language? Watching some show with my 15-year-old, and I'm like, oh, what's your love language, Grayson? And it's like gift giving.
Yep. I was going to say, that's yours.
Well, I think mine might be, but I think it's appreciation. I think like around the house, I want to feel like, oh, mom did this, or mom's driving me here. I just want to be acknowledged because I felt so invisible most of my earlier life.
Makes sense.
Now to have people see me who I love means so much to me. And that does go also into the workplace. you have to realize that these childhood traumas, they're just not, floating around in your house. They follow you to the grocery store. They follow you, to work. They're hanging out on your back at Trader Joe's. So it's like, you just have to be aware of those things. And I think for me, being seen and understood is a big aspect of my life.
Definitely. Now, this next question, if it's too personal, you don't have to answer it. Just let me know. But I would love to know, without getting into, too many of the details, how do you communicate with your children about your past? Letting them know, because I on some level, you may or may not want to disclose the truth. They're grandparents. So how do you sort of communicate, and make it still safe for your kids?
Right. Well, they're both at an age now that I definitely can talk to them. And so I just kind of fed them a little bit, like, oh, where's your parent? Where's my grandma, grandpa? And I just would be a little vague, but kids, as soon as you throw something else at them, they're like, oh, wait, what's over here? So it was easy when they were little to explain, and you just, oh, they're out of town. They live far away, or, mom doesn't get a chance to see them. But it was also my husband's parents, they don't live close by. So, holidays were really just about us. And there wasn't a whole lot of questioning. But I have a few pictures of them in the house. I'm like, oh, look, that's, those are your grandparents, which I thought was healthy. I don't mind seeing them. They're actually pictures of them when they were younger. So when I look at them, I'm like, oh, look, those guys are pretty cool looking. But I don't know that version of them.
Right.
So, but I do express to them, what mom went through, and why I don't see them now. And they're very understanding. They're very loving about it. And I've always told them, like, if ever you get an itch that you want to scratch and you want to contact them, you're more than welcome to.
That's good.
And they're not at that point. They're still, 15 and 28. They're kind of like, oh, if mom doesn't like them, something must be wrong. Yeah. But they might grow up and have families, and
Well, and I think that's wise for you. Going back to what you said, they're their own person.
They're their people.
And I remember one of the best pieces of advice I think that I received when I was pregnant is that my job was to teach my child how to take care of themselves.
Yes.
And, and doing that. And I think it's smart of you. You have your own relationship, and that's there. They can choose that down the road. And I think that's very healthy. So I honor you for that. In looking back through all of this, if you could go back in time, is there anything you would have done differently?
Oh boy. I would have bought a monthly pass at the Egyptian Museum. Anything I would have done differently? Oh God, that's so. You know what? I would have been nicer to myself.
Oh.
I would have been nicer to myself. I mean, there's a lot of like bad shit that, I wound up getting myself into because I didn't have anybody to bounce ideas off of. I'm like, oh, this could be a good idea. I'm like, no, this was a bad idea. So, and then I would beat myself up about it. Like, why did I put myself in that situation? Why did I do that? I think I would have been way nicer to myself. I would have been like, Laura, this is not the end of the world. You didn't cause all of this. Other people are involved to make this situation happen. And I think the inner dialogue was really hard. And I think that, sometimes that creeps up a lot. And I think it's just being nicer to yourself, giving yourself some slack. And I wasn't really grateful, I don't think, enough back then. I wasn't patting myself on the back a whole lot. Right. And I should have been. I should have been a little bit more supportive.
I think all of us can be kinder to ourselves. So I think that's really great. I just want to just acknowledge and honor you so much. I wish on some levels, I wish I would have known that this was going on. I understand why you didn't share, because I would have loved to have been there and cheering you on at graduation.
Thank you.
I
Oh,
look
it's
forward to
okay.
everything you've done and the life that you've created for yourself. I'm just in awe at the strength and the courage you've had to get there. So when you're looking sort of where you are now,
Yeah.
what's for Laura? What are you most focused on right now?
I don't know. I think that since I'm kind of freelancing right now and still doing events and flowers, I used to do TV segments for a morning show here called Sonoran Living Live. I had my Girl Friday segments. That was really interesting doing TV. So I've kind of dipped my toe in a few fun things, and I don't know. I feel like I'm starting over a little bit right now. I'm looking forward to venturing out a little bit more into the event planning world, but I'm just taking some time. I think this fall, this winter, to just see what the next step is.
I love it. Well, I mean, again, starting over is something that you've been doing and you've been successful.
Yeah.
So
No,
I know
thank
this
you.
next chapter will bring success as well. So when we started the conversation, I asked you how you defined success as a kid. Now, sitting here where you are today, how do you define success for yourself now?
Oh boy. Honestly, I think being level-headed. I think having peace of mind. I think in this world, success, God, it can mean so many things. There's so many different times in my life where I've felt very successful. Like oh my God, I am like doing something really, really cool. And I feel successful. But then there's days, where I cooked a great dinner and, we're just having this great moment, and that's super successful. Or I didn't look at my phone for like a whole day. And I mean, like right now, I'm like, oh, I can't look at anything. It's too much. It's too heavy. So success is, not scrolling through the news feed right now. And I think for me, because I've never really had, a career, I guess, my success comes in different forms.
Yeah, I love that. And again, you get to be the creator of that definition, and you can also change it as you go. So, well, Laura, thank you so much for coming on and for,
Thank
sharing
you.
your courage, sharing your message, so that, if any of us are feeling stuck, whatever we're in, to know that there are people like you who found a way out and were able to break away when they were in environments that didn't serve them. So
You don't
thank you.
have to be those people. You do not have to be them. You can be yourself.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all for watching another episode of Women Winning Their Way. I hope you took some good notes. I hope you are learning to love yourself and accept yourself, and know that, if at ever there's a time where things are not serving you, you have the freedom to walk away and create success all on your terms. So I'm your host, Clara Capano. We'll see you next time for another episode of Women Winning Their Way. So that was so powerful. And, as I was listening to Laura talk, there were, so many things that came up for me. First and foremost, never assume you know what's going on in somebody else's backyard. Everybody has their own battles, everybody has their own problems, and so again, just really being there for people, making it safe for other people, because you never know when someone might need to be, might have to be that person for somebody else. So again, showing kindness, towards others, and just never assuming you know what's going on with them. One of the things I loved most about what she said is the lesson she learned about being kinder to ourselves. When Nicholas was in school, he had a bully in second grade, and, Mama Bear wanted to go in there and take care of things. But the truth is we all have bullies, and the biggest bully that we have is ourselves. And we are so mean to ourselves. We beat ourselves down. We tell ourselves we're never doing enough. We never look good enough. We never have enough. And, think of the messages that that's doing to our mind, when quite frankly, we are perfect just the way we are. So I really encourage you, at the end of each day, show yourself some kindness. Go over and say maybe 3 nice things, 3 things that you love about yourself. Go through and say, what are 3 great things that happened? Because you know what? We're all going to make mistakes. None of us are getting out of here without making mistakes. And that's part of life. So start to be kind to yourself. And then again, look at things. Are they serving me? If you're in a relationship, in a job, in an environment, in a marriage, wherever it is, if it's not serving you, look into that. If you can change it, be a part of the solution to change it. But if you can't, because sometimes we cannot, know it's okay for you to walk away. One of my very favorite sayings is, you're not a tree. You can walk away. So if things are not serving you, it's okay to acknowledge that and know that you are strong. If you need some more strength, there are people around you who will help you. It could be the kindness of a stranger, like who Laura found. But just know that you deserve happiness, you deserve beauty, and you deserve to live in an environment that is going to foster success and be conducive for you to grow into the best version of yourself. So remember, as a woman, as a man, as anybody in today, you have the power to write your own story and to write your own chapter of each story that you have. You don't have to have it all figured out. So be kind, seek out support, and know that you deserve to be loved. So love yourself, love those around you. And thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. Look forward to seeing you next time for our episode of Women Winning Their Way.